you got to be a good risk leader. Cyber is nothing but a very prominent risk in any business. Now, you got to talk the business language. You have to make it so simple that your leaders understand, support, and obviously they have to finance you and to be successful. If you're a cloud-first, SaaS-first organization, you're living in a browser. Look at GitHubs and GitLabs and everything is browser-based. So there is even the code compilers and literally everything is happening in that space, right? Now, it is definitely your window to the world, computing world. End of the day, do what makes you happy. Like every interaction you have with people, it will just be on your face. Like people can see through you that are you a happy person or are you somebody just doing a job for the sake of doing a job, right? Then when you bring your 100% in and you are a very inside out person who is kind of happier and at a spot where you feel confident about yourself and the world around you, you create magic.
Hi, Sangram. Welcome to Be Fearless podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
I just want to give a brief introduction to our listeners who you are and what we're about to talk. So Sangram is currently the CISO and VP of IT at Sisense, but his career journey includes runs gamut from household names like PayPal, Square, Silicon Valley Bank to startups like Fast. And beyond his impressive professional credentials, including MBA from UCLA and numerous certifications, you're also passionate about building communities. So yeah, it's super exciting to talk about all of this. And maybe we can kick things off by learning more about your journey. Was it difficult coming from advisory background into this space?
Well, it's been a 20 plus year career, right? So when you look back, you see a pattern. But when I was going through it, I did not know the pattern, right?
Yeah.
Neither cyber as a domain did exist. Like if you go back 10 years, right? It was all about IT access and make sure that people got the right access and things of that nature. But where I'm today, if I look back, I think my advisory experience at KPMG, even prior to that Capgemini, did help me to understand what customers need, right? And always fine-tune my thought process to make sure that can I make meaning of a lot of information around us, right? So that I get that attention and essentially help build a program. So that's probably the essence of my thought process. Going to UCLA was definitely useful because being a non-native speaker as such, like growing up in India, coming here, I guess half of my lifetime, I'm here, but there is definitely some aspect of transition, which I went through as a practitioner. And I often give credit to a lot of my mentors, including my wife, who has been a wonderful coach, mentor, and partner. Yeah. And it has been a fantastic journey. And but those names happen to be like PayPal, Square, Venmo, Braintree. All this happened as a simple output of the work I did and happened to be with good people all around. Even current role, I'm loving it just because of the people we have, the problems we are solving. So that's kind of where I think we at Sisense, and I just want to give a little bit of context where I am today. Yeah. We are pretty late stage startup, and we are a fairly stable organization, right? From that standpoint, I run both IT as well as security, as CISO as well as VP of IT. Have got a very good team working with me. We are a data analytics platform. So we are essentially creating a new category called Analytics Platform as Services, ANPAS. We think of us as something we embed into your application. If you're using a banking application and you want to know your year-end statement, you go in there, you click on those little widgets and you see different graphs and charts happening. Yeah. That's what we do. Okay. And on the back end, obviously, there's a lot more to that, like integration. There is aspect of, so we are an AI play, but we were a ML or machine learning play before even AI came into existence, and we simplify that. use of data in a way so that customers love it and delight them from that point of view.
Oh, that's super helpful just to know like what you do. And I'll be curious to learn more how different it is to lead security in this space versus the financial space that you've been at before. How is it different, and what kind of adjustments did you have to make as you went along your career?
One of the things I remember very early, my mentor at Silicon Valley Bank, David Han, once told me, it doesn't matter what you know previously, like all the experiences you have had. What matters what you can do today. Okay. Because the threat landscape is changing, right? And the tech is changing. So what you did with the on-prem era, with the cloud era is different, or hybrid is different. Now with AI, it is going to be different. So I think you got to be a good student and learning pretty much every day of your life to understand what's the threat landscape and what is your response. There are other good things which has happened in the industry as such, because the technology, the security vendor community, the problem solvers out there, they're thinking hard about various problems and they're building pretty good tools. Like if you talk about classic cloud security, right? If you go back and have that conversation, we're happy to just get a visibility, like classic CSPM, CWPP kind of use case, right? Today, we are getting into runtime. Today, we're talking about a product, so I use heavily Orca. Product can do CDR, right? Like cloud detection and response. So what it means is the lag has reduced from a day to minutes now, right? And other areas also, the same innovation is happening. Like EDR vendors are literally doing real-time detection and response. So we are changing. So the approach is, from a program standpoint, I have a playbook. I go to a company, I understand the threat landscape, I understand the tech stack, I understand what are those elements of security you need to establish, right? Then you come up with a response like, okay, this area seems to be mature. Okay, let's not bother. Let it go the way it is. This area needs further attention. You go and double down. That's kind of my playbook has been. I've been very fortunate to iterate that a little bit because of few changes I had to do over a period of time. But it is the same mindset. Like, so here is something I want to kind of go back and make a statement, right?
Yeah.
You got to be a good risk leader, right? So cyber is nothing but a very prominent risk in any business. Now, you got to talk the business language. You have to make it so simple that your leaders understand, support, and obviously they have to finance you and to be successful. So I think many of us go too technical, deep into saying that this is the problem. Yeah. But of course, you have to do that. You have to have technologists who are dealing with that. But you have to level that up and have a business conversation in terms of why cyber is critical, why early detection is critical, how do we best respond is critical for any platform play, right? So we being a platform play, and we are being trusted with all our customers' data. So how do you do it? That's the responsibility. That's the culture. We have to, within our company, we 100% committed, top to bottom, bottom to top. So then it's a matter of execution, right? So first is that culture and commitment, then the execution of it.
How do you cultivate this culture? I wonder whether when you just joined the company, right, whether this kind of culture was already in place, or is it something that it's your responsibility as a CISO to cultivate once you join the company?
I think it is. Companies tend to have a culture, even if you don't really see something written on a piece of paper on a wall. Yeah. Companies do have a culture because these are the set of people who build the culture, right? The culture of trust, culture of understanding each other, responding to each other, right? And when you go in, you have to find a way to fit into that culture. Right. And the successful leaders are the ones who understand that culture and be part of it. Right. So one of the mentors once told me that the bigger company culture doesn't work in smaller company.
Okay.
Right. So you cannot just keep building risk register and then say that, hey, I told you so. Yeah. That doesn't work. Right. Yeah. In your smaller companies, here is a problem, here is a solution. You have to literally have a conversation of solution at get-go, right? So, but you go to a bigger company, you have a different set of problems, right? It's a scale problem, it is an influence problem, it is how can you move things faster, right? So sometimes being in both sides of the world, I feel like I balance both, right? I provide the maturity which is needed from a smaller organization to go from where they are to the future state. Whereas if I happen to be a part of a larger organization, you need to build that urgency of execution. Do it now, right? So there is a balance for both, but then you have to always fit into the existing culture of the company. In fact, you should evaluate in the process of interviewing and understanding what we are walking into in terms of a culture. If you don't connect well with the leaders, with the people around you, I don't think you'll be successful.
So then the following question, what is the culture at Sisense?
We are a very people-centric, customer-centric culture, right? I feel like I have a little bit of a Google influence at my home because of my cousin and my wife being there. Very similar culture, ground up culture, right? People speak their mind, people share what they think, and that's a very good culture. In fact, we are based out of, some of our engineers are in Israel, Ukraine, and US. So we balance these three, right? So culturally, if you don't empower people to speak their mind, experiment, do things what they think right, it's very hard to execute, right? It is definitely a conscientious sort of culture we have. And there is also, under the new CEO, we did a shift towards bias for action. Like move it now, right? Like there are things we have been trying to do for a while. We're not able to deliver on certain speed. And we are definitely have pivoted to the extent that do things now, as there's urgency to execute.
What is like the most rewarding part of leading cybersecurity in such company, would you say?
This company and even previous, I have a very, and this is some of my directs have also pointed me to this.
Yeah.
I literally go in and don't go with a bias in terms of like what has been told. This resource is great, that team is wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't go with that. I just go in and basically make people feel confident about what they do.
Okay.
Right? And how do you do that? You have to literally have those one-on-one conversation to understand, because everybody has a different set of needs. So you have to understand that person as such, right? And then at a point where you will realize you have to bring a healthy culture within a team. So one thing I did, this is during pandemic, it has been working really well, is I have a weekly stand-up where everybody gets few minutes, 5 minutes or so, and it is skip level. Everybody is in the call, and they come prepared whatever they feel like talking about. Like there is somebody wants to talk about cloud strategy and how do I continuous security. Somebody wants to talk about identity access management. So we bring that together. People talk about this is what I'm working on. This is what I plan to do next week after. And that becomes a very healthy information sharing as well as a sense of ownership and execution, right? And from a corporate level, obviously, we are doing OKR and various other things to create those measurable. We have our QBR and all that quarterly business review kind of and risk committee and whatnot. But bottom up only comes when you would just tell them that this is your forum.
Yeah.
You sign. You tell me what you are working on. To tell everybody in the team what makes you so unique about a problem you're trying to solve, right? So that's it has been really successful. And particularly we started this during pandemic time, and I've kept on that kind of a rhythm week over week basis.
Looks like COVID really united everyone together to speak up, to speak more about this.
And they also know what's happening in other areas within the team, right? So they respond well, right? So it's and then I also have another forum where I bring engineering team together with our security and IT team.
Yeah.
So we talk about joint issues, right? So that's also a very good way of looking at, rather telling people that's the project, that's the goal, just go and execute. Take them little get engaged a bit early and tell them that here is a problem, here is the objective we have for us.
Yeah.
Here is what I see and how do we solve it. Then when the response comes in, this is how we should solve it. Your job is to agree or course correct in a way that we're moving in the right direction, right? So it might take a little time as well because these things are time consuming and probably you can be very successful in a smaller organization just because of it's hard to do with 50 people in a room. But that's kind of a trick which has been working and successful.
I can really see that you're quite passionate about building community and, all about cultivating the right culture with the people you're working with. So I think natural next question would be, I know that you're part of the Purple Book community and many other communities. What sort of led you to it? And what are you trying to achieve by being part of this?
Well, to be honest, I did not ever start anything thinking that I need to have some gain out of it, right? You have to be a giver. If you want to give, that's a very different level of satisfaction you get, right? May that be doing a robotics from our garage for Team Austria, or essentially it's a way to how do I create things better around me, right? For my kids, my kids' friends, and whatnot, right? With Purple Book, very similar. When Nicole and folks were during pandemic, were thinking, we're actually getting bored. What do we do? How do we hang out together? That was the way we started hanging out. Then we decided that, we don't have a book written. We don't have this, put it in some context which can be used. All of us have got some sort of opinion and vision of the world, but can we bring together and make some meaning out of it, right? And it became just viral. I mean, thanks to Nikhil, Raj, and a few other people, Vijay and others. It's just not one person or one or few people. It is when you start something like this, or part of in a culture of giving, you have to feel good about giving, right? If you don't, as a person, if you don't feel about giving, then I don't think you will be successful because people see through people. They'll see why this person is doing certain things, and then it doesn't scale. It doesn't go too far.
Yeah, it's also all about, I would assume, understanding differences in approaches of different people when it comes to community, right? Having that EQ to see how different people operate differently. And the natural question I would have is, because you operated across so many environments, right? How did you really approach security depending on whichever environment you were in? I know that a lot of it is regulation driven, culture driven. How did you approach it?
So if you look at, it depends on the organization, but pretty much it's the same story everywhere you go, right? You do essentially 3 buckets, right? You do bunch of security stuff because you have to be compliant. Your customers are asking you some sort of requirements there. And you have to go and build those processes and controls and make sure you are getting tested and, moving, right? Then you do the real stuff, like how do I secure, like, classic, incident response and things like that. The first bucket I talk about customer compliance program. The second bucket is all about making sure you are doing so in a sense, security team's job is like a firefighter. Right? So if there's a fire, you have to deal with that. So having a good detection program, having a good remediation, having the response program, right? I think with what's going on around us with nation state, you better prepare that muscle, right? In terms of how do we best, respond to the threat once, if at all, unfortunate things happen. The third bucket is application security. Do the right thing, right? Do the security which is as if nobody is watching you, but you have to do it, right? Authentication, authorization, classic identity and access management, right? Classic application security, classic architectural conversations, right? So those are like 3 things. All this also overlaps in a way, right? There's a common thread, like let's make the world secure for us. Let's protect our assets. But if you just look at how you're dealing with these problems, this is no rocket science, to be honest with you, right? It is all about, I do a bunch of things for my customer.
Yeah.
I need to do certain things right, no matter what,
Yeah.
right? And I need to build my muscle to respond the best I could for any cyber threat, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I think about it. There is another aspect of it which we don't often talk about. Everything we do here, people and money and time,
Okay.
right? So what it means is you got to have the right people. You have to always assess. You first know what you're good at,
Yeah.
and obviously you know what you're not good at.
Yeah.
So find wherever you go, very quickly how to find what you are not good at.
Okay.
Do you have that level of competency within someone in the team, 1 or 2 or 3 people, right? Fill the gap. That's because many of us who are in the various CISO roles, there are CISS, we talk about roughly 8 verticals of security. You will get there if you're good at 3, 4 reasonably well. But then at one point you will say, you know what, I'm ready. I'll take on this broader role. But that point you're leaning on people, right? So you have to make sure that you're getting the right people to fill that gap. Then you have to make meaning of the money you are spending. You simply cannot just go and spend, because somebody told me once, in fact, it is my days at Venmo and Braintree, Juan Benitez told me, if I give you unlimited budget, can you give me 100% assurance on security?
Cannot.
Can't, right? So the point is you can't just keep on spending. You have to have a balance on where you are spending money, right? So then you have to figure out a way, process, like as in if you do not exist, can this, you as an individuals do not exist, can this organization run based on certain processes you have deployed, right? So that's kind of how I operate. You got to have a good knack of problem solving, right? So when a problem comes to you, people look at, oh shit. I look at it, oh, it's an opportunity to make things better. And then how do you take that? How do you simplify it, break it down, and have respective teams do their pieces together for a better success, right? So that's kind of like how I personally, in a sense, it is tiring. Like, somebody will say, when do you take a break? I mean, if you're having fun at what you're doing, you don't need a break. You just do what you like doing, right? And it just blends together in front of, as well as the way I think work life, right? But in your heart, you've got to be very clear what you want to do. If you're doing the right thing and you have support for that from the people you are working with, I think that's a good spot to be in.
Do you think in a way it's related to, you just previously mentioned the fact that you look once a new problem arises as an opportunity, right? Do you think it also comes from the fact that you're looking at cybersecurity beyond compliance? Because a lot of people, I would assume, if you just look at compliance and then a problem arises, then it's natural to think that, okay, oh shit, like I have to solve it.
So if somebody says that I do everything, I don't look at compliance, that's not a fact, right? I mean, you have to take that lens. There is a reason why these frameworks are there. Compliance is a requirement because we need to talk a language which everybody understands, right? Set of controls, set of processes, and things of that nature. And assessment of those against some standards. But as you do that, you have to balance what's the right thing to do, right? So there is a time where this is a very interesting conversation I had with the compliance, like an assessor. They always come in and do audit of onboarding process and offboarding process.
Yeah.
And I deployed a tool. I said 100% compliance with onboarding and offboarding.
Yeah.
And some people, this is a change in company's culture, literally, because it was a much larger company and we never had done it. I was told, no, don't. Let them just take whatever 40, 50 samples they're doing and working. I said, why not? Just tell them that we are 100% compliant. The day we are not compliant, I get an alert. And when I get an alert, within few hours, I'm terminating that. So I know, as per the control you have written, we are 100% in compliance with that. So that was a very change in conversation. That assessor came in and said, no, that's not how we do it. I said, okay, fine. You want to take 30 out of those, whatever X number, 500-700 tickets, that's up to you. From my process standpoint, I want to know the moment there's a drift from the rules we have, like cut off access from a human identity of source of truth connected to machine identity source of truth, and there's a drift for my core 7 or 8 application, I need a real-time alert, and we need to act, right? There should not be 1 hour delay. That's why, because that's common sense security. Why do I want somebody still to have access beyond the date of termination or hour of termination or minute of termination, right? So that's kind of like how I approach. But it's not that we do it only for definitely whatever we did automation there did accomplish the controls objective from compliance standpoint. But that, I think I'll do it because that's the right thing to do from a security standpoint.
Yeah, it's everyone has their own sort of culture of doing security, and it's very interesting to see that sometimes, I don't think it's even a question of sometimes, but you really have to be super thorough when it comes to processes.
There's certain things, right? You cannot compromise on identity access management.
Yeah.
It's like literally you cannot make multiple keys of your front door and give it to all your friends and then don't even know who you gave the keys to your front door, right? Or for the matter, don't have a camera at your front door or back door or things of that nature, right? So there are basic things we have to do no matter what. In spite of that, also we're having troubles, right? So I think we as a society and a bunch of practitioners have done well around human aspect of identity related to human, right? Yeah. So like classic human identities are Oktas of the world has solved for it, 1 logins of those, right? MFA, and you can do a lot of automation there to know who is logging in from where, and you can have that. But there is lot more to be done outside of that, right? So I work with a company in Atoma, and there's another Balkan ID. Both are very interesting space. They are still Atoma is focused on non-human identity. Right? So that means just think about how many non-human identities we have in infrastructure. Yeah. We don't even know. Just scoping that out is a bigger achievement, right? Once you know, can you automate the change and whatnot? If you can get to that spot, it's great, right? Same with over-permissive roles and access. Just getting to know that somebody should not have certain level of permission or authorization, but they have it, and getting it back to where you should be, right? That's what Balkan is trying to work on. So on a preventative side, you have to do certain things right. And we have to do more work.
For some reason, it's easy to imagine how the identity works in the physical world, but when it comes to cyber world, it's sometimes there are some gray areas that appear that still need to be addressed.
Yeah, and we're actively working on it. I think there's lots going on in that space. Yeah.
And given your background in AppSec, there is a lot talk about shifting left, right? At SquareX, we like to say to shift up where threats should be caught within the browser before it reaches the endpoint. So what are your thoughts around securing the browser? Do you see it becoming a major priority, especially in this industry?
I think the basic facts are you are living in a browser, right? Most likely, again, that depends on which company, but if you're a cloud first, SaaS first organization, you are living in a browser, right? Even if you look at GitHubs and GitLabs and everything is browser based. So there's even the code compilers and literally everything is happening in that space, right? Now, it is definitely your window to the world, computing world. On other side of it is your browser secure enough? Is your browser becomes a attack vector, right? And how do you prevent that? There has been some innovation happening. I believe there are companies get exited like more than $500 million. Palo Alto bought something. They're about to build something. I'm yet to see how far Talon goes there. But even there are Chrome enterprises of the world, even SquareX, right? So SquareX is looking at this problem very uniquely than the rest of the islands and whatnot. But I think I have a view, and it would probably this space is going to be evolving, as we say, particularly with the use of AI. There is a company called Lena AI also looking at it. But no matter where we land, the basic premises of security still has to be addressed, right? Is it my trusted browser? right? Am I actively managing it? Like just a bunch of extensions. Like sometimes, so can you even lock down the browser to the way that people cannot add extension? Now, that's probably not the right thing to do because you are a developer-first organization. Then you wanted to kind of open that up and let people do certain things. So there is a balance between these. So this comes back to the basic premises of security, right? Is security equal to one by productivity, right? Are you trying to slow things down or are you trying to move things faster? There are areas where we being perceived as slowing things down because we do not know how to deal with or how to provide that brake to go faster, like classic brake in a car kind of concept, right? So on browser security space, I think we're still figuring out what will be optimal set of controls for you to let companies or users to go faster. Does that make sense? Right? And that is going to settle, I think, and particularly with the AI era, with AI being another humongous shift in the way we do computing, right? We'll determine how we are going to do that. But I would love to see how the newer set of products come in terms of securing the browser, making sure something you're clicking is not, is it safe enough, or there is active blocking and tackling of that happening. Even if you download something, it's not going to go around and infect bunch of things. Probably we can catch that and do some sort of isolation and whatnot. So there is more to be done. There are some players who, I think this is where the startups will be also acquired by bigger companies, right? Because all the big ones out there, like browser companies, they know that that's the space they want to operate, right? And there will be some acquisition transactions in that space with a stabler set of products. Exactly what happened in cloud security space, right? Like less work to Wiz to Orca to whatnot. So you will see a similar happening in enterprise browsing space.
Yeah, you touched upon AI, and today, so many people access Gen AI tools via the browser, right? Then, in a way, it also becomes an attack vector, not for external threats, but internal threats when it comes to DLP. I don't know whether from your own expertise or of your peers, how do you see organizations today managing these sort of threats?
From a DLP standpoint?
Yeah.
Well, so, we have a fairly good product. I think they're innovating pretty well. Do Control, because we are G Suite and Slack. So it is a pretty seamless tool, both from SaaS management point of view as well as for any file somebody is trying to exfiltrate in a way. We can catch and isolate and do certain things. But DLP is a much different set of problem. I think the way we're looking at DLP today will be much different a year or two from now. Because the pace, AI is going to will use the data and information. And think about just to slap AI on something, the inherent nature of access control and access boundaries has to be maintained. And then confidentiality of the data has to be maintained, right? And there comes the DLP challenge. Right? So what if somebody creates something out of these so-called various data sources, right? And then trying to expel. There is a company, Glynn, I think they proudly talk about isolation, particularly because they're pretty much in a VPC and the data stays within their environment, doesn't leave the boundaries and whatnot. So there are certain architectures in play with respect to that, which is probably going to give us assurance that data is not going to be expelled. But DLP, the way we see it, is going to be very different. In fact, every domain of cybersecurity is going to be very different where we are today and 2 years from now. Because all of us are learning various aspects of it based on the use case which is emerging, enabled by AI.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is the space where every 2 years something new comes up and you just can't stay up to date with all the new threats and new technologies. Someone I spoke the other day, it was actually Sid. He was actually saying, thanks to attackers, we now see such great developments in technology. If we didn't have attackers, we wouldn't have as much technology out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And since we touched upon identity threats, right? We actually saw a rise in OAuth attacks a lot. And from your experience working so many industries, how are you thinking about identity security differently from 5 years ago to today?
Yeah, I think we briefly talked about it, right? So 5 years back, the focus was on human source of truth with respect to identity, right? So you get the right set of users, you got right access, so-called airbag and whatnot, and you're adding, slapping a MFA tool on top of it, and then great. In fact, I'm sometimes surprised at how Google did not take the lead in spite of, if you go back like 10 years, sign in with Google was a massively hit product and they did not monetize. It's totally lost opportunity. And here comes Okta and they have become what they have become, right? But fast forward today, I think everybody is getting into that NHI space, non-human identity space. Yeah. The ones operating in human identity space, they're going to get into non-human identity. But now the definition of non-human identity has been very broad, right? Is it just service account? Is it API token? It is SSH key? Is it IAM roles, creation of some secrets for that? Is it where being used? Is it permanently coded somewhere? So that is still, I think, it seems to be complicated, but it should not be that complicated because it's end of the day, some engineer is creating that identity and putting that to code, right? So it's kind of easier in certain areas, like if classic AWS, KMS usage, if you make architecture decision to use KMS to get go, you put that as a solution and a vaulting and whatnot. Yeah. But many times just to go in the essence of going faster, we end up, hard coding stuff, right? Or we never even give over permissive accounts, let's just say, right? Like, I don't know what I'm going to use. Give me all the permissions possible for this particular user ID, and they go and do that. I think that's going to change. There will be definitely tooling coming up. I think there are a lot of companies are thinking in this space. And I talked to you about a couple of companies in identity space I'm very passionate about. And we'll see some changes happening in that area as well. But if you step back and see, identity for corporate is a problem. I have the same problem in my household. Right? All these bank accounts you have access to, kids' school accounts, right? This is a problem which we have to think collectively how best we can do. Does password manager is the solution to that? Of course not. There has been breaches to those password manager companies too. So we have to be better at this. I think the simple way of being good at it is just practices, simple practice. Like, do you know how many keys you have to your door? Did you change that key frequently? Are you making sure that your friends don't have, the friends who used to be your friends, no longer your friends, still have the key, right? And that's like the basics of what I would say. And obviously from a defense and in a classic investigation, from incident response standpoint, you need logs, right? You got to have logs, you got to have ways to make meaning of logs and respond.
Makes me think of also personal identity, right? What we tend to see nowadays is that sometimes, not sometimes, but attackers like to leverage personal identity to get access to corporate identity.
Yes.
What are your thoughts around this? How do you sort of keep your environment secure without really getting into privacy of someone's personal life, right? Because sometimes all of us like to have personal Gmail open, corporate Gmail open, right? And then if you get the entry to one, then you often get entry to the other.
I think you have to keep it separate for sure. Right? But I know what you mean, right? Like I don't think personal and corporate mingles that much, but then within personal also you have various other things which mingles, right? Because you always have a fallback, I think one thing I've seen being done well outside of US is use of, again, it's not foolproof, SMS based authentication. We are doing it more and more. And I'm glad that we are doing it like couple of 3-4 years back. FTC mandated all the auto industry to have MFA rolled out. Like when I walked into this company, I had like, hello, you didn't have MFA for all your products? Oh my God, right? It's like 150 plus products, right? So the regulators are going to the extent of mandating basic set of controls as well. So we'll see. I think particularly as far as I see, we have been not good at managing identity for a while. And there's adversaries, they have kept some of these identities. They will and they are using or misusing those. And we got to be better at changing those credentials, managing those better. And with geopolitics the way it is, who knows, how it's going to say. It could be not that good.
I'm curious, do you have any war stories that you can share?
Well, so my first war story where I was literally like somebody doing a very specific work was eBay. When eBay got, and I think it's public domain, so I can talk about it. They got breached, and I don't know how, it's probably not in public domain, but a decision was made to reset credentials for, I think more than 100 million or so. I think I have to go back and check what was that. Users, change their passwords, right? Then the leaders made a very strong decision that we have to rotate credentials for all these user population. A very ethically strong company. And I'm glad that I was part of that organization. I saw that massive set of work happening literally in the war room and all that setting.
Yeah.
If you just go back to 2015, I think 2014, it was not what it's today, right? Yeah. But nowadays they are logging in. So they are coming in, and there's a very clear intent to monetize it, right? And you got to be doing a lot of hard work to make sure that you are able to prevent those unfortunate things to happen to you. But I think one thing I would probably say is 3-4 years back, if you had asked me, how do you think about this space and what are you doing to control it? Obviously, you do your based on all the investments and based on what the risks you're trying to mitigate. There could be aspect of unknown which you were never prepared for. I think what you should prepare for is how do you deal with that aspect of unknown? Yeah. If unfortunate things happen to you or one of anybody for the matter, can you quickly recover, right? And how do you recover? How do you play that out? Because sometimes if it is a widely known incident and in public domain, you have to share certain things in a public domain. Yeah. And it is not just CISO's responsibility at that point in time. It is a business problem. It is a legal problem. It is a communication problem, right? Yeah. So you are essentially together dealing with that. So just being prepared and practicing and doing tabletops to make sure that at least certain decisions and possibly have got some decisions recorded just in case if happens, you have a decision and you can go and execute. But it's not about, I think, simple way of thinking is be ready, be prepared, and do the right thing for your customer, do the right thing for your employees, do the right thing for your investor.
It must be so tricky for a CISO to try to figure out, because there are so many threats out there, right? Which one do you focus on when it comes to potential prevention, right? There's an attack that happened, then you think, okay, I should be cautious of this one. But then there are so many.
I don't think we think that way. The way we think is we think about defense and depth, right? So we're not talking about a control to mitigate a risk. Okay. You look at, there are a set of risks out there. You must have few controls in place because there's a good chance that one control will break or will not work. So you can't just rely on one piece of control to think that it's going to work and hence it's going to prevent. So you have to have a classic defense in depth approach. Where we tend to get in trouble is not knowing the attack surface. Right? Sometimes maybe there's a little product running in some place, maybe in a data center, nobody pays attention to, and that becomes a problem for you.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's something you should have deprecated, or you have not deprecated, and hence becomes a problem, right? It is not necessarily the bigger obvious ones, but it is that little thing you have not done the cleanup. Right. So I think one thing I'm very focused on is even if it is that 1 or 2% of legwork of a particular project which is supposed to happen, go to the end to make sure that it does happen. Then verify it. I think the problem is sometimes our compliance programs are not true verification program. It is focused on a scope. It'll talk about, hey, I'll look at this production system or I'll look at this, right? But that is not your attack surface. Your attack surface is every machine which is breathing and living, every employee who has access to it, right? So you've got to figure out a way to do compliance beyond, do security beyond compliance. And the classic, the word is continuous verification or continuous compliance, but that has to be true, complete, 100% continuous compliance. And I think all of us are working towards that.
Yeah, I think in a way you answered my question, but maybe you wanted to elaborate a little more on what do you think is the common mistake most organizations make when it comes to mature their security programs? Especially if we talk about browser security or SaaS protection.
On a SaaS side and browser side, I think it is from a classic risk and response point of view.
Yeah.
I think we are doing okay from a SaaS and shadow SaaS, and I don't think AI is a different conversation, but. On the browser side of it, we're still dealing with the old way of doing things. So you put an email security solution, right? You hope that something comes in, there's a sandbox, classic proof point, abnormal, mimecast, whatever you use, right? On a browser side, then you said, okay, I'm going to just deploy a classic corporate browser, make sure that I'm responding to any changes which is being recommended. I'm proactively dealing with that. But beyond that, I don't think many company has got. Banking side of it, people, I think some experience, if I go back, has locked down browsers in many ways. Even there are certain areas they even do classic VMs, non-persistent VMs, like you literally come in, do your work, end of the day, it'll gone, right?
Yeah.
So depends on the company and the context. But the simple way of thinking is, I think there are more to be done in that browser security space. The ones we are talking about is managed browser is one problem, but your interface to the world is the browser.
Yeah.
So there are much more threat than classic. What is people? I mean, because if people can put anything they want to, like a plugin and whatnot, you are literally exposing the world to a different way. So there's some work which has happened, good that you have managed browser, this and that. The more to be done, because what if there is a smarter way of knowing what is sanctioned, what is not sanctioned from a SaaS point of view? What is sanctioned plugin versus non-sanctioned plugin, right? Yeah. I think those solutions are still being built. And I think there's some promising solution out there as well.
Yeah, I think as you spoke about the attack surface, right? One of the bigger mistakes that security leaders might be making is not being aware about the exact attack surface and how to really manage all of it. Yeah.
And it's every organization is different, right? So there are different levels of maturity, right? Some place you want to go in and say, you know what, I want to first make sure that my detection response is right.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it's a maturity issue. If an organization has spent a lot of money making sure that they stay compliant, because it's a customer mandated request, may not have spent much time on detection and response, right? So then once you shift to that, then you're talking about like, do I need to move into browser security? Or do I need to get into, I think identity 101 must be done. But so there are multiple things we are concerned about. And the question is, which one is your top priority and where you are kind of spending your time and energy, right? But yeah, I know it's just a matter of, many times you also react, right? So what happens to us, based on that, you are literally building your security remediation program. So if somebody says that I don't look at a remediation program-based security program as such, that's not true, because many of us find issues and trying to remediate, right? The way we look at risk and we're trying to mitigate, right? So that conversation is happening day in, day out.
What kind of advice would you give to, aspiring cybersecurity leaders that are thinking of entering the industry, going way up, something that you think not many people are aware of?
So everybody will have a different experience because you typically do not know. I can tell you my story. One of my mentor, David Han, he told me, Sangram, we are not ready till the point you think you are ready, right? And I always thought, I know a few things. I'm still growing and learning other things. I probably need to know a few other areas before I take on something bigger. And he said, no, you're ready. So that moment, I realized that these leaders trust me more than I trust myself.
Wow.
The level of confidence which came from somebody who has been there, done that for a number of years, and asking me to take on something it's very assuring, right? Then also he told me that I did have a very candid conversation. He said, you are a problem solver. It doesn't matter what experience you have in past, but can you look at the context today and find a solution to the problem we have? If you have that mindset, you are always ready. But I would tell my younger self is to decide on a vertical sooner in career. I think there's a time where I thought I'm going to get into product risk and product management, within the world of PayPal. Or there are times where I thought I would just be a founder of a company and just, kind of figure out, I think I can build a better solution to what problems I see. And maybe that will happen. But if I go back and talk to my younger self in a way, I would say, obviously, hustle, work hard, meet with people. And there is another thing which I often think about is going back to my days, PayPal and others, we are not supposed to talk about things in public domain. Even if you put something in LinkedIn, somebody will going to come and say, why did you put it? We have become a bit kind of relaxed in a way, and putting at least personal brand building in public domain has happened. For a long time, I did not put myself out there. Even if I was working on some of these cool projects, or even from a networking standpoint, I did not. I wish I had done that a bit earlier. I think because what happens is you are in an organization. There are certain people perceive you certain way, but you're the same person. Go to a different environment, and you are perceived much differently. And then you find your alignment. You find your new trusted partners, and then you make them successful. They make you successful, and then that happens. So I think there's a bit of that as well. But end of the day, do what makes you happy. If you're not happy from within, like every interaction you have with people, it will just be on your face. Like people can see through you that are you a happy person, or are you somebody just doing a job for the sake of doing a job, right? Then when you bring your 100% in, and you are a very inside out person who is kind of happier and at a spot where you feel confident about yourself and the world around you, you create magic. I think there is a subtle difference. Unless until you go through that journey, you will not know that what is that click is. And once you get to that spot, you're pretty much in a zone. You're literally like, I want to go and play like cricket players, like Sachin Tendulkar, and hit a century every match possibly, right? So that's kind of the click has to happen.
Yeah, it's amazing advice. It's about being able to be flexible, to trust yourself, not just your mentor, that you actually can go about and accomplish things and I guess have fun along the way as you go through building your own personal brand. And we have this little tradition, Sangram, where our previous guest likes to ask question for our next guest. So our previous guest asked, what's an example of an area that you don't think AI agents can help to automate the processes?
There is a lot of areas, particularly in cyber. I'll be really, really glad to see if we can have any solution using agentic AI around security incident response as such. Not the immediate technical response, but beyond that, the human element, communicating to your stakeholders, communicating to your customers, making sure that you are going through. So every incident is different.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out a way, and incident, the firefighting construct, right? So you got to know the fire and need to fight the fire. And the fire is different. You can't have a script written for the fire, firefighting. But there is a huge human element of security which happens when there is a fire, right? And it is right from communication to responding to law enforcement agencies, to the due diligence you go through yourself to make sure that based on this information, this is my assessment, and hence this is my belief, and then trickling that down to your stakeholders, including employees and partners ecosystem, your partner as in vendor side of it, definitely your leadership and financial stakeholders. So that I don't think it's going to. I think with AI era, you will see that human element will be very clear in terms of how you do things, because there will be times where you will stop trusting the machine. I said, is it true or false, right? And that's happening in social media space. You saw that, right? So you came back, you read one article just because your friend sent that to you, not because it is up there in some of the social media platform, right? So I think there is that moment. I don't think it is going to be automated, but there will be some tooling which will help amplify this. Like, hey, can I write a press release much faster? Yes. Can I get a list of all customers for this particular product who has been impacted? Instead of going and finding things in whatever database, Salesforce and whatnot, you might get to that data faster. But still, the human element will be in play.
Definitely. It's, I think some of this simple tasks definitely can be automated, but when it comes to this very deep human element of remediating certain incidents, risk, it's quite tricky. And so what question would you like to ask to our next guest?
Well, so I know SquareX founder is from India, right? And though I have lived almost half of my lifetime here in this country, I somehow feel like I'm still connected back in home. And I see a lot of, if it is somebody coming from India, if you happen to, that will be a question. But then we can have another question for folks back here in US. Is if you are looking at India and the frauds which is happening in the financial sector, because there's a lack of regulation. Like here, credit card fraud happens. You call a bank gives you money back. They do whatever, cash back or due diligence, right? Some aspect of it is kind of little missing in India. I hope they catch that up. But there's lots happening around pig butchering, kind of scams. A lot of elder people who has money, a bit older, they're getting really severely impacted for that. And the financial institution they go to, they literally say, we can't help you. In reality, money is easy to trace, right? So money is such a thing that it has to go from one ledger to another. And when these banks tell that we cannot trace your money, that's not right. So anything can be done to build that defense to protect some of these. The other thing what has happened back in India is there are tons of phones, Android device mostly, and people are using internet. And they're not that literate from what to click, what not to click. Right? and they're getting into trouble a lot.
Yeah.
And because of whatever embarrassment or do not want to talk to even family members, they tend to take those financial losses. I think if something can be done and something can be built to prevent that, it would be a dream come true. If somebody has some ideas, I would love to kind of talk to them.
Yeah.
And I have some ideas as well how to do that. Then if you look at our construct here, right, I always wonder good world versus bad world, right? And we are literally on public internet, right? So internet is nothing but a public network. And we have done certain things, right, in terms of securing, defending, and whatnot. Do you think in next 20 years or maybe 10 years horizon, there'll be a need to have a separate internet? People pay for that. It is highly secure. Well, that should be the promise. And we will transact in that so-called internet in a trusted way. And that probably will accelerate some innovation much faster. Don't know if it's a
raw version of the internet.
If it is going to happen, the question is, will that happen in next 10 years or 20 years?
Interesting. Yeah, great question, Sangram. Thank you so much for being part of our Be Fearless podcast. It was such a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you very much. And this is, as I said, I'd love to give back. Anybody who wants to reach out, have a conversation, more than happy to entertain that. And on top of it, thank you for what you do. I think you being in Singapore, messaging me that, hey, let's do this, getting connected, providing the context, and at least working with my schedule and all that has been amazing. I appreciate what you do. This is a very good way to give back to the community. Though we are not talking specifics, we're talking broadly, but there is definitely some aspect of specificity which can be used to learn from each other's experience.
And for specifics, they can reach out to you.
There are certain things we can talk, there are certain things we cannot, but whatever we can share for a learning point of view, we must share with each other.
Definitely. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you.